the Reach In Talk Show, where I am yours truly, the host, the Dr. Nicole Lynette, where we talk all things life and wellness. Well, y'all know we've been on a roll celebrating our men. Why? Because men matter. And so this week we're talking about men and fathers who mentor. We know that a lot of times it's easy to talk about this generation and what they're not doing and what they need to do. However, it's important that they have proper examples before them and people in place to mentor them, to help them know where the stones are in this life, right? So they can look like they're walking on water, like some of you very successful people are doing, right? So I am so excited to have in the studio with us today a father, a husband, a mentor, not just outside of his home, but also in his home. And he brought with us a guest, a special guest, none other than his son. So without further ado, if you all would give us a round of applause and help me welcome our special guest today, Mr. Alfredo, Alberto, and his amazing son, Evan.
All right, thank you very much for having us here today. And we appreciate just being with you right now.
Okay, it's great having you. And we had a man, Evan, in here with us today.
It's a very exciting experience.
It's exciting? Okay. But don't get too excited. Wait till I get to asking all these questions. I'm just kidding. So, we're talking about fathers who mentor.
Right.
Yes, I'm let me tell you why I'm so excited about this topic and having you all here today. Because I know you personally. And I know that what you're going to talk about today is not just about what you heard. It's going to be about what you live. And you can't get no more authentic than that. But before we dive into the mentoring portion, let's talk a little bit about your personal life, where you're from, your family dynamics, things of that nature. So if you don't mind sharing that information.
Yes, of course. So again, my name is Alfredo, and so we started out in California. My family's from Central America, so I'm first generation born here in America. First in my family to ever graduate college. So there's just so many firsts in my family that I provided the milestones, the stepping stones for the next generation. It's been a pretty interesting upbringing, trailblazing the path for the next generation. And so that's why I had to bring my son today so y'all can hear from him, not just from me, how that journey looks like.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so Evan, so who are you? What do you do? What do you like? How old are you? Where are you from? No, I'm just kidding. Just share a little bit of information about you.
My name is Evan, and I'm from California, born there, but I live in Texas now. I would say I like dinosaurs and video games, obviously. I'm a teenager, and yeah.
You're a teenager. How old are you?
13.
You're 13?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're officially a teenager, right? 13.
Yes.
That's when it starts. Yeah. I know these days, for some reason, people saying, I have an 11-year-old. These teenagers, they're not teens yet. You're officially a teenager at 13. I have the mind of a teenager, but I'm just saying. But I'm so glad that you're here so that you can share a little bit more with us. And so is Evan your only child?
Well, Evan is my eldest son, and we have my princess Emily, which is 8, and we also have the littlest mini-me. He's 5, and that's the one that just runs around the house and makes a lot of noise. He's our cheerleader, I would say.
Okay, all right, awesome. So you are currently, now when I met you, you were working with Prairie View A&M University, a part of their Family Community Health and Cooperative Extension Program.
Correct.
Okay, and at that time you were providing programs and services for youth?
Correct. So we provided services for youth, for our elders, our seniors, and also parents. So parenting classes, character development classes, and some money management classes.
Okay, all right. Okay, awesome. So, and I know some of those because with my nonprofit, we were able to partner and help provide some classes. And I met you at another training. That's when I first met you. So you lived the life of mentoring.
Right.
So before we get into just the depths of work and all of that, so right now you've had a great opportunity of promotion. So it's not just the family cooperative extension program, but now, just share with me.
Yes, so the Prairie Wellness in Houston is an extension of the Cooperative Extension Program. So we do work majority focused on in Houston and its surrounding areas.
Okay. So what type of services do you all provide?
So as a whole, we provide nutrition education services and also food examples of how to make meals and recipes for the little ones and for adults, and also how to make a garden, right? How to
Okay.
create your own garden, raised beds, aquaponics, hydroponics, agriculture, money management, which is what I focus on for the College of Business. So we talk about savvy saving seniors for our seniors, money habits for our parents, and then also for the little ones about how to save, spend, and give, little things
Okay.
like that.
Okay. And so basically, I'm thinking about how, you segued from a lot of the intricate programs that you all were working with, and and I got some stuff for you. Okay, it's coming. It's coming. Be ready for it. Be ready for it. Hold it. But so thinking about the programs and services that you all provide, especially when you're talking about food preps for the little ones, and food preps for families and gardens, because there's such a food desert in the city now. And how is that? That's like a bridge. So how is that bridge gap, bridging that gap?
Okay.
How has that been working? What are you seeing as?
And so the way that we provide our service, which is at no cost, is we meet the need where the need is. And so we go into the communities to give that access, because a lot of times it's not just information, but also access to the information that
Right.
kind of limits some individuals to have the knowledge and, that wealth of knowledge to know more, so they can, do more with what they have, right? So when they have that access, then we go there, we do our classes, we do our community events, and all provided through our Purview Wellness in Houston, and Family Community Health as well. And so, yeah.
Okay. So when you come, so do you find and now are these, and I know you say in Houston,
Right.
but is this in the inner city that you all provide these services? Is it collectively wherever? What is your target market?
Right, so our target market is limited resource families and children in the households. And I say that because I started off with the Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program, which is called FNEP, and I did that for 5 years. So I actually made the meals. I went to the classes, the Park and Recs in Houston. And then for the other 5 years, I actually did what I said earlier about the parenting, character development. And now I'm on the side of actually building the team to actually go out and execute our initiatives, and to be where the people are. So
Okay.
instead of saying, well, come here, come there, no, we go where they are.
Okay. And I always think that is more effective, because a lot of times we're saying, well, the resources are here. If the people want the resources, they can come and take advantage of the resources. But you said something so valuable earlier about, we have to raise awareness that resources exist, right? And so then taking those resources to them and let them know, hey, you have access, is here, right? So I just think that's very important. So Evan, you're 13. What grade are you in?
I'm going to 8th grade.
Going to the 8th grade. So in your time in middle school, just relating to what your dad is talking about, a lot of services, I know you with your dad because I met you at a training event with your dad. And you've grown so much. Just from your perspective as a teen, just talking about the services, the food services and things of that nature at your school, have you seen where that need is really paramount? Something that they really need?
Something that my school needs is really supervision, like close supervision, because sometimes like people do crazy stuff and nobody sees it, and sometimes people won't report it because they think, oh, these people are going to beat me up, or people are going to think I'm a snitch. And it's like, either way, someone gets hurt or no one does anything about it.
Oh, wow. You just took me to a place. I was, okay. We're going to talk about that on the second part of this show.
When they use the food inappropriately.
Yes.
Majority of the food goes into the trash can.
So the food goes into the trash?
Yes, like most times this is a thing where people just mash up a bunch of leftover food or food they haven't even eaten and just put it in a cup, pour liquid, and then like shove it in people's faces. It's
so
crazy.
is bullying. People are bullying people with the food?
No, that's what people do. Like friends, like everybody does that nowadays. It's really, they do anything they want, really.
So, okay, let me understand what you're saying. So you're saying they take food, they pour liquid in or whatever. When I guess I'm trying to understand when you say when they're putting it in people's face. What do you mean by that?
Like really either spill it because, you know, messy and
So they're wasting food.
basically, yeah.
Wasting food. So you believe that if there was more adult supervision, then maybe the youth wouldn't be so wasteful.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're wasting food, what are they eating?
They eat like little portions usually, or what I see is people bring their own lunch boxes, eat what's in there, and then go get more food from the lunch line.
Oh, okay. So the food in the lunch line. Okay, so the food that's being provided for you by your school, they're wasting that food because they're bringing in their own food.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, never thought about that. So what do you think, other than supervision, what's another maybe idea that you may have that can help maybe educate your peers?
Show that sometimes people like in other places need food and are starving. When you show them that, it says, oh, I probably shouldn't waste this. And also, I feel like some people don't eat the food because they think it tastes gross, and nutrition, all that. I think they need to learn about nutrition, because when they see, like, if you give them broccoli, they're not going to eat that.
Okay.
And that's usually what they put in their, messes. They put in stuff they don't want.
Okay, got you. So basically, I'm hearing a couple of things here. So educate your peers on the value of having food accessible to you, because there are some people that are not afforded the opportunity to have food accessible. And it's interesting that I'm hearing this from you when literally there's a food desert right here in the city of Houston. But then we have students at school that's wasting food. So that's interesting. We're gonna have to kind of explore that more, because then if that's the case, maybe that's where some gaps are and some balances are off. Because if we're saying we're in a food desert, but then we have food that's being wasted, maybe the proper allocation of food is really the problem. And now you open me up to all kind of thought processes, like companies that have food that families can benefit from right here in the city. I know some of you may be agreeing with me, and some of you all, especially officials, may not want to hear me say this, but there are companies I know for sure that have great food. It's just they maybe had too much excess, but they actually throw the food away. But here we are as a city claiming to have a food desert. So I believe these are thoughts that we really need to, and observations we need to make and really kind of think about, because if we're in a food desert, why are we throwing food away? Perfectly good food from restaurants, perfectly good food. You know, and I have ideas. I don't know, before I share my ideas, what are some ideas you might think about restaurants that have good food? Rather than throwing it away, what could they do?
I mean, sometimes they're regulated by the city policies, laws, and things like that. So I understand from that point of view that, you know, they cannot actually give it out. So it has to be thrown out. But programs that are created to connect them to the Houston Food Bank, that kind of helps to mitigate, you know, actually waste of food. But one thing I do personally, I would say, in the time, and Evan can attest to this, is that we make everything that I've learned, I've actually shared it at home. Like spaghetti squash, we made that at home. We made breakfast pizzas. So everything that I was exposed to and everything that I taught, they now know, and so they now can teach themselves. So again, it's circling back to that, taking that initiative, just that initial initiative, and actually practicing what we do out in the community at home, and that's where the impact really, takes place.
Okay, awesome. What did you want to share? Another recommendation? Another one? Because you just let the bag out the hat. I just want you to know that you have just opened up a can. So, and you kind of touch base on some things I want to talk about on the second half about making that full circle, the mentoring portion and all of that. However, going back to it, I believe and I understand about regulations and all of that, but sometimes I think regulations are there to protect bottom lines of companies and businesses and city government. Because when you start thinking about some of the food that is there, and I'm a no-bar talk show host. I have no filters. So, and we're not afraid to have conversations about hard topics, hot topics, and the truth. Okay?
Nice.
So, I believe that sometimes regulations are there. Yes, some things are to protect, but when you really begin to observe some of these regulations at the end of the day, bottom line, because I know for sure there are restaurants that recycle food. Yes. Yeah.
In that pizza box.
However, if that food, once it was, let's just say, because there are other states that have actually practiced this. Once they were done with food, they actually fed homeless people, or they sent it to organizations that was feeding homeless people. So there is something that can be done to help minimize the food deserts and make sure that people are fed. And it's not because it's not just all about the company's bottom line and making a dollar, right? So I know because the bread, when I come up, the bread house was bread that did not get sold, in the store, or maybe have just little defects, as long as it wasn't something that's harmful to you medically or to your body, but it may have defects or whatever, and it was discounted bread. And you can go and get that bread from the bread house.
And we got that bread.
And pastries and things of that nature. It was 6 of us. That was a blessing and a benefit for my family. And you don't see a lot of that anymore, because sometimes I feel like in this America, we have shifted our focus from family focus to funding our own pockets in alignment. But who am I? I'm just a talk show host. But nevertheless, so when we come back, we're going to dive a little bit into what you guys were already preparing to dive into, talking about the mentoring and how things come full circle and how it benefits our family and our society. So when we get back, we're going to jump there.
As we advance in years, most of us will need a little help with daily activities. Modern Vintage Home Care is here to provide support to our seniors and their families. Our experienced caregivers are compassionate and ready to help. Whether personal care or handyman services, we're here for you. Call today to learn how we're redefining quality care.
Welcome back to the Reach In Talk Show, where I am yours truly, the host, the Dr. Nicole Lynette, where we talk all things life and wellness. We're talking and celebrating our men, because men matter. And we're talking about fathers who mentor today. And we're just gonna hype it up a little bit more with our wonderful guests in the studio with us, Mr. Alfredo Alberto and his wonderful son, Mr. Evan. Okay, so we're back. So before we took break, you were kind of segueing to the mentoring portion and all of that. And when you begin to share your background about being the trailblazer in the family, the first generation here in America, first generation, to complete college, first generation, that is presidential, okay? To be first generation. So, there's a saying that says, to whom much is given, much is required. And I know that's, a lot comes with being the first.
Right.
Because being the first is saying that you are setting the precedence, you are setting the standard. And that's why I'm so excited to have Evan with us today, because you're first generation, so that means he's second generation. So it's important to be that mentor, to be that example before your seed. So in doing so, just let's talk about, you were sharing earlier about how you take the information you receive and what you teach others, and you actually implement that in your home. How does that look? Because everybody doesn't think on that level.
Right.
So.
And thank you for the question, because I've thought about that over and over again, night and day, when I go do my presentations and classes. And it's a big mantle. Right, when you say that, to whom much is given, much is required, and I have that actually on my wall, my prayer wall. I look at it every single day, and how that looks like is when I'm in the classroom, I cannot not be transparent with my students or the audience, whoever it may be, to make that connection, because the atmosphere. I'm gonna just go deep real quick, because the atmosphere and the environment changes when I say, "Hey, this is what we do at my house." So I'm not telling you nothing that I wouldn't say at my home. So it makes that connection. It kind of rocks some people. They're like, well, I might not want to hear that, but sometimes it's because you're touching a very delicate thing in some individuals, because it's like, whoa, you're getting way too close to who I am. Get out of my brain, get out of my life, get out of my spirit. And that's the reason why that happens is because the authenticity is so real or thick that I'm literally trying to get to, the heart of every individual when I'm teaching the class.
Okay, so basically, and I can see where that hits home. I can see where there can be a spirit, because when you say this is what I do, I'm not just sharing this information with you from an academia perspective. I'm actually telling you what I practice at home and how it works, not implying that, okay, well, maybe you should do the same thing, but just as an example. And you're right, that's powerful, because you're not just, I call it a lecturer.
Right.
Okay?
No, never that.
You're not just a lecturer. You're actually a change agent, and it's actually something personal in your life. So, Evan, when your dad brings all these ideas home and things of that nature, what is your response? What is your reaction? What is your thought process when he says, okay, family, we're getting ready to do this? What do you think?
I think it kind of sets a role model for me, because it's very leader-like, and it's very encouraging to me, because it helps me be a leader, and it shows that he has a lot of trust in us, and he has a lot of leadership. And when that impacts me very well, because it helps me grow in my own personality and person, because as a person, I am very shy, honestly. And when he shows me that I can be a leader, it really helps with my mental health.
Oh, wow. Ooh, I'm like, that's the show. We can shut this down. This is a perfect blueprint of how effective, and we're talking about fathers who mentor, because sometimes fathers go out into society and they're working, and that, from the church house to the White House to your house, it's easy to be the public example, the public model. But then the question is, what do your children think about you? What does your spouse, your wife, think about you? Are you sharing all this wonderful gifts and talents and ideas out in public view, but are you actually emulating that and expanding that reach for your increase in what you know in the private sector, in your private life? So are you the same in public as you are in private?
That's good.
And unfortunately, a lot of families are robbed, and I share this with fathers, because most people know I mentor men from 250 to 300 men a month. And I've been in the prisons where I've taught, and we've had to have real candid conversations to why are we here, and just really sharing how important it is for our men to be healthy and our men to take proper leadership. And I say proper leadership because there is a such thing as improper leadership, right? But to be the example and not be the generation, unfortunately, that somewhat I come from that says, do as I say and not as I do. And from what I'm hearing from this perfect model here is that, Alfredo, you're actually not saying do as I say. You're showing him and your family what to do. And when I hear Evan says, oh my goodness, even though I'm shy, but when I see my dad, he helps my mental health. He shows me that he trusts us. That gives me goosebumps. Because I believe, and I'm going to ask you, Evan, do you believe that's what this generation is looking for? Or do you, because sometimes people say these young people don't want to do nothing with their lives. These young people don't want to listen to nobody. These young people. It's almost like the creepy shows, like a scary movie if it's about young people. But what do you feel about, what they say about young people these days? What do you feel?
I feel like people look at young people, look at their actions, and then judge them by their actions, but they don't look at what caused their actions. They're not looking at the cause, they're looking at the effect and judging them by their effect.
I wish I had a mic. I promise you I would drop it. I will so drop it, Evan. I agree with you on that. And so how can you talk to us? Like, think about one of those older people that really have gotten on your nerves, because you're a young man. There are some older people that have gotten on your nerves. You're having a conversation with that person. You don't have to tell us who it is. Just, think I'm that person. And they're going off on young people. And based on what you just said, what are some of your recommendations that you would talk to adults about? How can we course correct this mindset that a lot of people have about young people in our society?
I think we should talk to them with more, they need guidance. Young people need guidance because they don't have a path that's lit for them, because they pick their own path. Like, today the model is do whatever you want, be whoever you want. And I feel like that's what most people are judging them by. They're being crazy, they're being, whoever they want to be, but is that who they are?
Okay, that's good.
Whoa. I knew you was ready for this. Is that really who they are? I think about, if you don't know who you are, you become anything anybody wants you to be, or what someone suggests or recommends you to be, right? Mm-hmm. So when you say their path is not lit, then I segue back to your dad. Because being a mentor helps light the path for generations to come. So, Dad, listening to your son share with me right now. What do you feel about that path needing to be lit for young people today?
Right, and so I would say that there is a motto at a school that I teach at a lot called Wenchi High School in Spring, Texas. Mm-hmm. And there's a motto there that says, don't tell me what there is to be until you show me what there is to be. Mm-hmm. And I just stood there when I first walked into that school 7 years ago, and that helped me show, demonstrate, display, be an example for my son, and said, okay, even let's say for his bullies that were bullying him at one time, ask the question, well, I wonder why. I wonder what's going on at home. Mm-hmm. And we would ask those questions. Of course, we would pray. We wouldn't just judge. We would just pray. It's like, I wonder why. And then now that actual used to be bully, that at one time, they're now friends, because we asked that question. Well, I wonder what's going on at home. And I might be getting a little too deep, but really, that's really where the core of some of the youth is like, well, if I haven't been shown, then how am I supposed to see the path in front of me? So I'll do whatever the world tells me to be, because that's what I'm seeing what everybody else do.
Right. And the example, not just the world, but some of the examples in the home. If this is how parents respond and react to situations, then this is how I'm going to respond and react as well. Mm-hmm. And nothing is too deep on reach in. because that's why we're reaching in. We're reaching beyond the surface. Because a lot of times people look at, let's talk about icebergs. They look at the tip of the iceberg, but what sinks ships is what's beneath the surface. So we have to reach in beneath the surface. Just like I think that is so admirable that you all, begin to pray and actually see what is the root of the bullying, right? So we have to get to beyond, and Evan, the information that you just dropping bars in here today. You just dropping bars, young man, that it is so important that, because everybody know I love young people. I will cut folks with machetes when they start talking about young folk. Because I'm like, if you're not investing, shut your mouth. If you're not praying, shut your mouth. If you're not going to be an example, shut your mouth. Get your mouth off these young people and do what that slogan says at that school. Don't tell them what they need to be about. Show them. Be an example, right? And so when you begin to share, Evan, about just that, you have that leadership in your dad. So that's something amazing, because not every young man or every young woman is afforded the opportunity to have such positive, impactful leadership models in their lives directly, which brings me to the question, because I understand what you said, what you saw in Spring ISD. But let's be real. In the inner city schools, where we're not seeing those slogans in the schools, where we're not seeing the programs that are actually provided for, I would say, school districts that are funded better, or richly funded. How can we bridge that gap? Because a lot of our urban schools are hurting. So what can we do as far as mentoring and kind of making sure that they receive the resources and mentorship, because a lot of our schools are missing that piece.
2 points. One point is in Spring ISD. I know I keep talking about Spring ISD, but that's where I live and that's where I serve. Actually, there's a Spring Vine mentorship program that they have. It's new, and they have individuals that are from the industry, the outside, of course, they get background checked and all that, of course, to go into the elementary schools, the middle schools, and the high schools, and just have a conversation with a young person. And just say, hey, tell me about your day. How's it been going? About 30 minutes, 45 to an hour max, and once a week. And last semester I had about 3 mentees, 2 seniors, Chris and Amadric, and also 1 ninth grader. And so that right there, it helped me just see the benefit that it could duplicate itself in other school districts, of course, that had to be open for that model. Because what was missing a lot is that these kids are going through start prep, testing, homework. They just come out of COVID life or whatever, and nobody's talking to them. So it's like, where's the conversation happening where they can have like a valve to turn to say, I just need to be me. Yes. And just talk about that. Now, their friends, of course, they always have their peers, but their peers haven't lived 20, 30, 40 years.
Right.
The life experience. And Judah is what I was thinking, who I was trying to give my
third mentee.
My third mentee. So I have a couple more years with him, but that, when I saw the progression from fall to spring, I think it would be a good place to start would be maybe an area where it's needed most, Okay.
And and when you say that, now you're talking about opening up a whole dam of floodgates, because the need is very, very prevalent. It's a great need. And you said something that was key as well, schools that are open. And that, we deal with our nonprofit as well. And, I'm grateful because there are schools that are opening up. And I talk about these districts, and I'm going to give hats off, applause. We're going to give applause to Spring ISD, who has welcomed the mentoring part in there, because you can train young people academically, but that's not the whole person. That's not the whole person. They need cognitive intervention to help them deal with their mentality. We talk about a lot of mental health. Well, mental health includes what's going on with them emotionally, what's going on with them mentally, what's going on in their family life, their family dynamics. And I know it's easy to say, and this is not on the teachers, the instructors, because they're doing their part as much as they can. They have to make sure that the kids are test ready and all of that. But that's another conversation for another show. We don't have time. But they're handling that. But there was when I was coming up in school, and I'm not going to talk about how that goes because that dates me. But anyway, that's all right. I'm good. But that was a time when there was collaborative efforts.
Oh, yeah.
And collaborative partnerships. Parents can come into the classroom, and that's another show as well, because there's a lot of false information stating that parents cannot come on the campuses, but that's actually illegal. But that's another conversation. Yes, I know that lady on that talk show. But because it's important for us to understand facts and truth so that we can be able to be effective for our young people, for our children. Because they're our greatest possession. They are. They are precious, they are powerful, and they are only as powerful as they know they are. And you have done a great job in helping. Your son just said it himself. You didn't tell him that. He said it himself. He's no longer the shy dude that he was back in the day. He's now leading, which I'm going to jump. I know it seemed like I'm rambling, but I want to hear from you because you're here. So I'm going to take advantage of this because, usually y'all caught up in your video games. So what areas do you see yourself leading in?
I think talking to others now, because back then I could not even speak. Now, talking to others, and I think talking about emotions, because some people, it's hard for them to get emotions out, and to the wrong people they say it, and then some people might make fun of them, some people might make them feel bad, or make them feel like an alien. Oh, I'm the only person that's feeling this.
Oh, wow.
So I like when I can relate, because when you're talking about feelings, you kind of have to relate, or you have to, not make them feel bad. Make them feel like I'm not the only one that feels this way.
Okay.
Just be like a listening ear.
Yeah. And that's a word by itself, listening. Because if we learn to listen and actively listen, then sometimes it'll help guide us on how to respond or not respond. Because responding all the time is not necessarily always the best thing. Sometimes we have to practice the gift of presence. Sometimes just being a listening ear can help people work through their challenges. They just need to know someone's there, care enough to be there. And I think with our Gen Zers and even those before then, our millennials and all of that, what happens is there's a breakdown, because I did come from a generation that felt like children, you just sit there, be quiet. You don't have any problems as long as you have food on the table, clothes on your back, a roof over your head. You should be good. You don't have any problems like we have problems. But I remember being a young person, and I had problems. Matter of fact, my problems had problems. So, so I was a hot mess, right? But I was an overachiever, and no one recognized it. They didn't see me because academic-wise, I was at the top tier. But emotionally, I was depressed and just going through, the motions. So I am excited to know that you see where you can be an asset to your peer groups, and not just peer groups, because I believe young people are not just leaders of tomorrow. I believe young people are leaders of today, and not just being impactful to your generation, but I believe that young people can help course correct some things in previous generations. And I can see you as being one of those leaders. So I appreciate the value that you add to this show and the information that you're sharing with our viewing audience. So, Dad, just talk to me. What's one of your greatest mentor moments?
Okay. That I've had, or
that you've had? Yeah.
Okay, that I've had. Greatest mentor moments that I've had is, I've had a Chris. He did his senior project on one of my presentations that I did when he was in 10th grade, and it was about the blue light, and it's about how it impacts our eyes and things like that. Not knowing that 3 years later he still kept that and made it his senior project, and I had to. He needed help, me writing him a recommendation letter, and so of course in order to graduate he needed that requirement. So I, not knowing, I just do as I go and just do, and not knowing that he was actually focused on my presentations, because I think, well, nobody sees it really, I just do it because I just want to make sure like the examples out there, there's a sample out there of what a good presentation looks like, and just being an influencer. And he actually held on to that idea for 3 years and then presented it as a senior.
Wow. So you get the power of just impact, the power of example. When sometimes, I'm looking at how your son looks at you. Boy, you're going to make me cry. Because that is so, your son admires you. And I see that. And I know that there may be young people who are watching that wish they had that. But one thing I want young people to know, that if you don't have that directly in your home, this is an information age. YouTube, Google some influencers. You can connect. We're going to have some information here shortly, how to connect with Mr. Alberto. You might want to talk to Evan, however that goes. But at the end of the day, the thing that you desire is that you want to be, and what I love about Evan said was, a lot of times young people are judged about what they do, but the question is that really who they are? You are not what you do. That's what you do. That's why you can always change it. When you find out who you are and you're confident in who you are, that will begin to dictate what you do. So, I want you all, and before I do this, I have to go here. So we talk about your children and how you've influenced them. Talk to me about, I'm not going to ask you that first. I'm going to ask Evan. Evan, talk to me about your mom. What do you think your mom thinks about your dad and all the leadership examples that he set?
I think my mom, I think she, well, first of all, she works a lot and she has a lot of stress because 3 kids and a lot of clothes, a lot of chores.
Laundry.
Definitely laundry. And what usually my siblings do, run around going crazy. I'm tired. And what Dad does is that he tells us, hey, can we help Mom? What can we help Mom with? And now I do that. I'm like, hey guys, can we be a little quieter? What can we help Mom with? And I feel like that really helps her, and I think that's why she appreciates that
I should have had tissue for this session. Lord have mercy. Y'all just moving me. Yes. So your wife. Let's talk about your wife.
Okay.
So.
Well, my wife, Leslie Alberto, right? Actually wanted to, back in 2003, I'll just put it out there so y'all don't know. So
Okay.
Welcome to the Alberto's house. I asked the Lord, I said, hey, I'm tired of girlfriends. Look, I just give me my wife. I just bleated, asked, prayed, and I told my wife the other day, it's like, just to let you know about my commitment to you. I was committed to you even before God showed me who you even were in the first place.
Wow.
And so that was about almost 20 years in October, right? And so for me, I've held on to that promise out of conviction, of course, because in honor to the Lord. And that's not easy, but anything worth, fighting for is not, it's never going to be easy. So I remind her that, that's why we're together, and communication is key, right? No matter how angry, I'm just going to say it. We have to communicate, especially if we're going to raise 3 children. We're going to know who's going to make breakfast, lunch, and dinner. She is a very loving, caring, and amazing mother, and also just a loving and amazing wife that works overtime all the time, almost. And then she needs a vacation.
She needs vacation.
but yeah, but no, Leslie is yeah. So she's she's an amazing woman. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I am, and I love this because with Black and brown families, there are so many negative narratives. And today, this just shares and shows that we have amazing families. There are great, positive families that people can actually earmark and begin to use. I like what you said, example and sample. And say, where are the stones? That family is doing great. Not saying that it's perfect, but that family is healthy. And there's a difference in being a healthy family and a perfect family. There will never be perfect families because none of us are perfect people. And I'm so excited because I know Evan knows this. As much as we talk about the imperfections of parents, well, I always tell young people, y'all know y'all imperfect, right? Too, right? I know y'all think y'all got it all together, but nah, y'all don't.
Yeah.
But we're perfect people, imperfect people, living in an imperfect world, trying to perfect family. And that requires, in order for that to happen as a group project, everyone has to work to perfect those areas of their lives that are insufficient and grow in those areas. And that's where love comes in. That's where patience come in. That's where, that long suffering comes in, fruit of the Spirit for those who know what I'm talking about. Because we have to be patient with one another. But most of all, we have to learn to be patient with ourselves. And that helps other people to be patient with us as well. And the example of your family dynamic and Alfredo, just the commitment to not just be the man of the house in word and in pride, and because in order to be the mentor in the house, the leader mentor and the leader servant, it requires humility. And that's something some men just feel like, hey, I'm the man, do what I say do, and you need to do it right now. I don't want to shut up, woman, I don't want to hear you. Go tell them children to go lay down. So, speaking to that, and this is a perfect segue to one of the last things I want to ask you. So, as being a father, being a mentor in your home and outside of your home, share a word of encouragement or just some words of wisdom with fathers, if you can do that from the perspective of a father and mentor.
Okay. If I can just say one comment.
Yes.
So I was raised mostly by my mom, right? My grandma, and my aunt. So I was raised mostly by women. Right? And so I saw the examples of my father. I love my father. Reconciled with my father, and also my stepfather. They were there, but they were kind of like shadow dads. They had to work hard. They did what they needed to do. I had my roof over my head. I had the food on the table. I had the clothes on my back. But I needed my dad to have my back. And so that is what I want to have for Evan, for him to know, okay, something going on popped off today on the bus. Guess what? Dad's going to be at the school tomorrow. And I will be there, just no problem, no questions asked. And that's just a word I wanted to share to segue to what you wanted to share, is that for him to know that I'm there, and I made that promise even before he was born. He was in his mom's belly, that I would be there whenever he needed me. Dad will be on his right, mom will be on his left, and the Lord will be there always. So for me, that it takes perseverance, endurance, but really being rooted in Christ. So that's for me.
Evan, so if you had words of encouragement for young people, your peers, and even some of them that may have fathers that are present but may not have fathers that's present, what words can you give to maybe one of your peers that may be watching to encourage them pertaining to following the lead of a father or just being who they are?
I would say find a good mentor and find a good role model, a good inspirer, and find someone that you could trust to talk to. And if you're ever stressed, just take a break. And because when you have a mentor, that's someone you can talk to, relate to, and it makes you feel better in the end. Because my dad, he's my mentor, and he really helps me through with stuff. If I'm stressed, I could go talk to him, and I feel better in the end. I feel amazing, I feel good, and I could get back to whatever I was doing. And he really helps me throughout life. And when you have that, everything changes. So find that person. If you can't find one, there's also online. There's also the Holy Spirit, the Bible, Jesus. He's always there.
Okay.
I'm done. I'm overwhelmed. And how old are you again, Evan?
13 years old.
13. There's been cycles of fragmentation in families and young men and their fathers and all of this for centuries and generations. But you said something, Alfredo, about how you reconciled your relationship with you and your father.
Right.
There's always hope for reconciliation. So even if you're not with your dad may have been the most imperfect, just off the wall man, someone that you have denoted that you're going to hate to the day, not he leaves here, but you leave here. But the truth of the matter is this: maybe your dad, if you've never thought about it, maybe your dad didn't have the proper example. Maybe your dad didn't have a mentor to help teach him how to be the father that he needs to be for you. And some of you all may have resulted in extreme measures like self-medicating and promiscuity and just hating your life because of that. However, there is an answer, and there are Evan just told us there are mentors that's available. And most of all, when you feel like there is nobody that can understand, you can pray. Some of you may not believe that God exists, but he does. And there's as part of the Bible that lets you know that when your mother and father have forsaken you, the Lord will be there for you. And it's not God on God if your parents did not do what they were supposed to do for you in your life. God is different than your mother and your father. So his intent for you is to have the proper mentorship. His intent for you is to live a powerful, healthy, and successful life. Anything outside of that, that's not his will. And this may be the first time you're hearing this. And with Alfredo and Evan being here, this is an example of what God wants for your life. And it doesn't, all skin folk is not kinfolk. It may not be through your biological family. God may send you somebody to help you along your way. And if that's what you really desire in your heart, then begin to pray, God, help me, show me somebody that can teach me, that can lead me, to help me course correct my behavior, because I understand that young people are cutting themselves. Our teenagers and suicide is at a very high percentage now. And young adults, it's showing that a little bit over 80% of young adults are depressed. And a lot of that comes because there's a lot of trauma, a lot of issues that have not been resolved. And like Evan said, you don't have anyone to talk to. But I just believe that just you hearing this show today will help unlock some things in you and help you know that there is hope. Mm-hmm. There is hope for you. You are not a lost cause. If you're in this earth, there is purpose for you. Yeah. And our prayer is that your purpose is revealed, and that the things, if your father wasn't the best that he could be for you, that you will see what not to do. Okay? You don't have to follow those footsteps. You can see what not to do and do opposite. Yeah. Mr. Alberto is right here as an example. He and his father reconciled their relationship.
And if I could say one last thing.
Huh?
One last thing real quick.
Oh, you surely can. Yeah. I'm just all moved and stuff because this excites me because I don't like the negative narrative about black and brown families and the men and our sons and all of that. because I know, and I'm going to let him say what he's going to have to say, and I'll say what I have to say so we can close.
So when I was 14, I made a promise to myself that I would never forget how hard it was to be a teenager. And that is the reason why I still do what I do 30 plus years later. And I go talk to elementary school students, middle school students, and high school students. There has not been a time in my life after I made that promise that I'm not in front of young youth, the next generation. And so I've used the number 988 when it was another number, but now 988, I've used that number. So just to let y'all know, it's not a perfect family, but it's an imperfect family, following. And so I've used that number to say, not to say too much, but there are days we need to have just somebody listen and just be a listening ear and to give us resources and have that. So just want to put that out there.
And on that note, I just want to thank you all for being here with me today. You all have really just impacted, just this show today. And I know you've impacted lives for our viewers. And so if they want to contact you, how can they do that?
They can contact me via email. Yeah,
Okay.
We can connect that way. Yeah, and so we can see how we can connect you to more resources.
Okay, so what's your email?
So my email is fr8dyy@gmail.com. So again, that's fr8dyy@gmail.com.
Okay, awesome. And that's the number 8, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, the number 8. So if you want to contact Mr. Alberto, he's just giving you his email address. And I want to close by saying this. When we have healthy men, we have healthy families. When we have healthy families, we have healthy communities. When we have healthy communities, we have healthy cities. And when we have healthy cities, we have healthy states. If we have healthy states, then we'll have a healthy country. When we have healthy countries, we have a healthy world. Men matter. We have to celebrate our men, and we have to be there to help them level up to where they're supposed to be so that we can have a healthy future for our generations. Again, thank you for joining us again. This is Reach In Talk Show. Until next time, remember to reach in.